Hello and welcome to the MetricStream GRC Summit. My name is Hari and I'm working as a product manager at MetricStream. For today's session, we're going to take a look at some of the latest innovations in M7 integrated risk platform in the enterprise and operational risk management space. Now, before we dive into the demo, I'd like to spend a few minutes in talking about the trends in risk management. Now, let me start by quoting a famous Greek philosopher, Heraclitus. The only thing that's constant in this world is change. This he said many years ago, and it is pretty true even in today's world. Organizations today have to increasingly adapt and cope with the ever-changing global economy. Globalization of the economy has had a tremendous impact, and it has actually disrupted the way organizations operate, and that is a direct impact on the volume and velocity of risks. We may feel happy about the fact that globalization has a positive impact on the economic growth rate, but if the growth rate if it actually goes beyond the evolution of the economic standards, then there's an increasing chance that of risks, and then it has to be taken care and addressed appropriately by risk professionals. Risks are so interconnected today that it can actually spill over from one risk to another risk in times of crisis. Take, for example, compliance risks in an organization. The compliance risks can spill over to an operational risk. An operational risk can then spill over to strategic risk. And that could be a chain reaction unless and otherwise these risks are identified at the right moment and then stopped or mitigated at the right moment. Not just that, risks are increasingly permeating from different levels of organization today. And it becomes an immense responsibility on the CRO to track emerging, evolving risk in addition to the already existing risks and make sure they are managed effectively and appropriately. Risk has always been part and parcel of the business operations. However, we've always looked at risk management as a separate entity, as a separate specialized function for some reason. But only when we start identifying, analyzing, and then monitoring risk on a continuous basis as part of the work that we perform and do is when we will be able to take a risk-aware decision, which will be more appropriate for succeeding in our business. So it is high time that we start welcoming and embracing risk management as a function, as part of our culture itself. So what benefit does it have? It has a tremendous benefit in terms of data harmonization, and it also helps in arriving at an aggregated risk exposure, which then on enables a group-wise or an enterprise-wise effective risk management. Now that we've spoken about the trends in risk management, let's take a look at how MetricStream helps in this space by taking a look at some of the innovations that we've done in the recent past. I'd like to talk about 3 innovations. The first one being aggregated risk intelligence. Now, risk aggregation is nothing but a collection of multiple interrelated risks in order to come up with a total risk exposure of a part or whole of the organization. Now, how does that help? This helps the risk managers in to a great extent by to foresee issue even actually occurs. Now, MetricStream as a platform provides a very simple but yet a powerful risk aggregation framework, which can be used to provide essential and useful insights to the board and executive management. The next innovation would be loss reporting in a globalized environment. Globalization, as we spoke earlier, has made a tremendous impact in the way organizations operate, right? And any enterprise does not perform to the full extent in a silo. Today, if we need something, we are not tied to our national or state boundaries. We've crossed national boundaries, and we've gone international. And the moment we go international, we touch many lives. There are multiple stakeholders at stake here. So increasingly, there are multiple regulatory bodies which gets more interested in the corporate affairs and demand multiple data so that they can keep the enterprise's actions in check in order to protect the stakes of multiple stakeholders involved. Now, that being the case, multi-currency reporting becomes increasingly essential, and MetricStream provides a framework for that as well. Now, the third innovation, which I'd like to cover, would be multi-factor control evaluation. So we all know, as part of risk management, residual, one of the most important objectives is to keep risk at check. And in order to keep that at check and at an acceptable level, we should always keep evaluating the controls in terms of whether it is designed effectively, whether it is operating effectively, so on and so forth. MetricStream again provides a very configurable and easy way to create multiple such factors like design effectiveness and operating effectiveness in order to arrive at an overall control effectiveness automatically. Now that we've spoken about it, let's take a look at that in action. All right, so the first innovation, as we just spoke about, it was risk aggregation report. Now I'm going to be playing the role of a CRO and let's say an LOB head, right? So as a CRO, I have access to all the data. And as a head, let's say an OB head in Europe, I have primarily access, my access is restricted to Europe data alone. I probably cannot view the risk assessment details of America or some other nation. So as a CRO, if I log in, or even if as an LOB head, I log in, by default, the system launches this aggregation report by respecting the security of the user who's logged in. So there are a couple of things that I'd like to highlight here. What you see on the right-hand side is the data area, and on the left is the filter area. The important parameters for this report, as you can see, are aggregate by and aggregation basis. The aggregate by, if I have to quickly drop down on that, would be various dimensions. Now, what is a dimension? A dimension is nothing but a structure or the framework which any business tries to achieve its objectives, right? So it can be line of business, locations, regions, functions, legal entities, so on and so forth. Now, Metric allows you to configure up to 6 dimensions, and what you see right now are just for this demo purpose. Now, I'm going to choose function here, and my risk aggregation basis can either be a worst case scenario aggregation, or it can be a simple average right now. So it is to be noted that we are constantly evolving, so we will also be including weighted average pretty soon. But as of now, I'm just going to select, say, average as my method or as my aggregation basis. Now, the moment I click on apply filter, you're going to notice here that the dimension data here changes. So it is now restored to a function dimension. Now, so this means, before I change that, this means that the risk assessment data has been aggregated and then represented in the functional hierarchy right now. So as and when I click the functional hierarchy, we are going to get deep into the level 2 of the functional hierarchy. So let me first drill down there and then show you, and then let's change the data filter again. So as you can see here, I'm now at the level 2 of the functional hierarchy. Now, at this moment, I can choose to view the heat map. As you can see here in this level as well. So as and when you click and go one level deeper, it is going to show you the relevant aggregated data for that level for your inherent risk, your control rating, and your residual risk as well. So at this point of time, I can choose to click on the heat map, where it graphically represents the movement of inherent to residual risk. You should note here that the colors again are configurable. You can choose to use red instead of orange, or yellow instead of blue, so on and so forth. Or what I can do is I can also click on the view assessments. Now, what is this view assessments? View assessments is the supporting data for the aggregation. So at some point of time, if I feel, okay, how has the system calculated? How can I be confident that the aggregation is true? I just have to click on view assessment, and system is going to come up with the list of data or risk of assessments in this case, which have caused the aggregated data to appear the way it has appeared. So let me move back to where we started. And I'm going to showcase you another something called as focused aggregation. Now, as a CRO, when I log in, as an LOB head of Europe region, if I log in, we just mentioned earlier that by default, the data is filtered by my access. But as a CRO, if I log in, I get all the data. But I may still want to filter the data and perform a filtered and focused aggregation. So let's say I'm going to filter my dimensions here, and then I'm going to select capital market as my LOB. And let's say I'm going to select maybe HR finance as my global location, and I'd like to select all right, by legal entity as well. So I can choose to add more, or I can choose to add a specific risk or a specific assessed item as well. But however, I'm just going to add this and then apply filter. You will notice shortly that the data has changed. That is because your subset of data with which you actually want to perform the aggregation has now changed. You want to now look at the aggregated data for function hierarchy filtered by the lens of the data of this particular organization. Now, if you see here, the data that's considered here for this is only 2 because our filter has acted upon it. So this way, as a CRO or as a risk manager in charge of a specific dimension, you will be able to see either a focused aggregation or be able to perform an overall aggregation as per your needs. Let me now move on to the next demonstration. The next innovative feature we spoke about just earlier was multi-currency support. So as we discussed earlier, it is very important that our system supports extracting reports in multiple currencies, because there are various parties, including regulatory bodies, including other government authorities, and even our own parent company, if I'm a subsidiary company operating at one country. So even a parent company operating in a different country may be interested. So that way, my data can be localized to the personal preference of the person wanting to see the data. Now, if you see here, the data that you see here, again in the data area, you see the loss event event name, and you also see a bunch of monetary values covering gross loss, net loss, additional recoveries. Now, the way you extract the report here is by paying attention to these two main important filters: reporting currency and transaction currency. Reporting currency is the currency in which you intend to extract the data. So currently you see USD or American dollars. I can choose to change it to Great Britain pounds as well, or euro, or as long as I have the exchange rate in my system, I'll be able to extract the data. Transaction currency is the currency in which the transaction was actually performed. Now I can go ahead and choose multiple here. While I can choose only one currency in my reporting currency, I can choose multiple currencies as part of my transaction currency. So let me just go ahead and choose some currencies here. And let me go ahead and change the reporting currency to say GBP. Now, when I apply the filter, you should notice that there are some color. There are system kind of highlights certain things in color. So what does the color signify? The color signifies that the exchange rate, the conversion of entries, is incomplete. Why? Because the exchange rates have not been maintained properly. And once you go ahead and then update, that's again a simple configuration where you go ahead and update that. The moment you go ahead and update that, the color is going to disappear. So for instance, if I run the same in Indian rupees and apply the filter, system does not highlight me anything. It means that my exchange setup is full and I can be confident of extracting the report. Now there is a drill down enabled here as well. So if I have to click gross loss figure, it's going to tell me what are the different lines that amount to the total in the main report. So in this way, you can choose to extract data in multiple currencies. While the data is the same, respecting the exchange rate currency, you will be able to provide these report to multiple officials as per their need. Now the third and last innovation highlight is the multi-factor control assessment. Now, I'm right now in the risk assessment page, and what you see here is the context of the assessment. So in this case, the context is the organization in which the assessment is being performed. and disbursement is actually the assessed entity. So these are risks that you see, and I'm going to click on one of the risks, say unauthorized disbursements. And what you see here are the different sections of the assessment for that particular risk. I have inherent rating, and as you can see here, there are impact and likelihood, which are again configurable. If you want urgency as a factor, you can go ahead and configure that. And as and when you change the assessment, you directly have an impact on the inherent rating as well. Now, moving on to control effectiveness, which is where our innovation lies as well, the current innovation lies. As you can see here, there are columns here to represent effectiveness and operating effectiveness and overall effectiveness. Now, as you notice here, for these controls for fund transfer approval, so as this risk being unauthorized disbursement, I'd like to check if there are approvals around the disbursement, and I mark my design effectiveness appropriately. And you can notice that as and when I see, measure and then evaluate my design effectiveness and operating effectiveness, my overall effectiveness changes accordingly. So in this case, I'm just going to mark it as effective, and you see that it is now effective. Now, this also impacts my overall control rating, and and as a result, your residual rating also gets impacted because your control effectiveness has an impact on your inherent rating. As a result, your residual rating changes. Now, these are some of the innovations that we have done in the recent past. So we keep innovating every year, and over the years, a lot of our innovations are being used by a lot of our customers spread across globe and deriving benefits out of it. Now, I'm sure the current innovations what we've done I'm sure will benefit the organizations in making a lot of in giving them a lot of risk visibility, and they can make a lot of decisions by inducing a risk-aware culture as well. Thank you for watching the presentation, and I'd recommend and actually recommend you to go ahead and take up the other presentations in other tracks of products. There are quite a lot of innovations done there as well, and I'm sure you'll watch and enjoy the same. Thank you.